Speakers Association, which I need to join immediately, a two-time TEDx presenter, and a certified personality insights disc trainer. Her communication skills are useful in her business of knowledge, pronounced like knowledge. Just in case you didn't get that, you're supposed to laugh. And to help maintain her 50-year marriage, support her communication with their 3 grown children after living through their teens, and enjoying her 4 grandchildren, if I remember, and her 5 granddaughters. I apologize. Unfortunately, today's skills have not helped her with her poor housekeeping or cooking skills. Please welcome, all the way from Vero Beach, Dr. Katie Knoll.
So you may recognize these 4 people in the room that you may have found earlier in your life. And if you haven't, well, you're going to meet them sometime. I found them over 30 years ago while trying to increase my parenting skills with our 3 children. And I've since found that they are critical skills, whether you're a business owner or an employee. These 4 personalities are people you're going to run into on a regular basis. So let's find out who they are, shall we? The invite said that the networking and the food would be available at 7. The main event was going to start at 8. Around 6:30, the double doors opened, and Shireen looked in. She walked in and asked, "Is there anything I could do to help?" Shireen loves to help. Anything she can do to help just makes her feel happy. They said, no, we have everything taken care of. So she went to the back of the room, which was comfortable, and sat down. As she was sitting there, she noticed that somebody ran into the room with a cart full of floral arrangements for the centerpieces. She jumped up and said, "Do you need any help?" "Oh, thank you," they said. So she happily and carefully set the arrangements on the remaining tables. At exactly 7 o'clock, Charles comes in. His freshly ironed khakis and white shirt crinkled as he walked towards the food table. Of course, he was evaluating whether the cost of the event was comparable to the arrangements and the food. He sat on the side so he could watch others, constantly checking his watch to see if this was going to start on time or not, and if, more importantly, if it was going to end on time. A little before 8, David strides into the room, dressed in his power suit, shaking hands and glad-handing with others, making sure that he could touch base with everyone he needed to contact. He didn't have anything to do with the event, but it didn't keep him from advising the staff on how they could do things better. You know him, right? At 8:15, a flurry of scarves announced a large purse that contained one of everything, if you could find it, followed by Imogene. As she came floating into the room, excusing herself, going past people to get in the middle seat, explaining in a humorous way why she was late. Anybody else would have said there was a traffic jam, if there had been one. She just usually runs late. Now, you may recognize those 4 people and understand their strengths and their weaknesses. And I admit I extended some of their characteristics. But really, don't we each have a little bit of Shireen, Charles, David, and Imogene in us? So why would it be important to find out who they are and how they communicate? Well, in 2011, David Grossman's paper on the cost of poor communication found that in companies of over 100,000 employees, the average annual cost was $62.4 million. In companies that had 100 employees, Deborah Hamilton found that the average cost was around $420,000. Even mom and pop places have found that for average salaries of $40,000, there's about $15,000 a year that's lost due to poor communication. So wouldn't you like to know and identify those characters and also find the best way to communicate so that your bottom line is increased? Companies that have gone through this program have found that they found increased productivity. They have found employee engagement, employee retention, and building trust. So you ready to start?
Ready?
I'm going to teach you 2 simple questions that will help you with your entire personality issues. First question, are you more extroverted or more introverted? So I'm going to ask you, for the first question, those who are more extroverted, can you raise your hand? Now, people who are not, can you look around the room and say, would you agree that those people are more extroverted? Yeah, okay. For those who are more introverted, can you, like, at least raise your hand a little bit? Okay.
Yeah.
And for those of you,
Yeah, I'm not at work, then I'm not.
when you're not there. Right, and that's a very important point, that in different places we have different personalities, right? Very good point. So, and for those of you who didn't raise your hand, I know exactly where you're going, so stay with me. The second question is, when you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, this is going to be the best day ever, and you put your head on the pillow at night and say, oh, I can't believe how perfect that was. Is that the day where you know what's going to happen, where it's going to go, what all the details, who you're going to meet, what food you're going to eat, every detail is planned out? Or is it a day where you're just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow? So for those of you who like to have that structured day, can you raise your hand? And those who didn't raise your hand, can you look around? Would you agree that those people are that way? And how about our go with the flow people? Can you raise your hand? Oh, look, we have a lot of flowers. Well, this is great. This is great. So I'm going to introduce it. Those 2 questions are going to define 4 different personalities. Once you know these 4 different personalities, I'll give you an example of how they can help you with your bottom line. So those 2 questions, we can divide into 4 different personalities. The first one, those of you who are extroverted and detail-oriented, like that structure, would you raise your hand? 1, 2, 2. That actually represents about 10% of our population, so that's about right. Now, those people, and for people who know them, see if we have this description right. The more direct, the more bottom line, don't waste my time, I want to get things done. Does this sound right? Does this sound right? Yeah. Okay, okay. They may have a tendency to kind of not really care what people think because we're just going to get this done. Is that true? No. We love these people. Without those kind of, we will call them Davids, without those Davids, we cannot get things done because the rest of us are too busy doing other things, right? I mean, how many things do you guys have going on your plate? Lots? And you're getting them all done, right? Okay. Now, for those of you who are extroverted and go with the flow kind of people, I have a feeling we have a lot of them today. Yeah, go extroverted and go with the flow. Okay, look at this. Okay, this represents about 30% of the population, and it is about 1/3 of the group. Isn't that interesting? I mean, my degree's in statistics, but I still find that fascinating. These people are imaginative, they're icons, they like to be out and out, getting things done. And our prime example here, Anna, they don't even know about a box to think out of. They've never even seen a box. We love them for their creativity. They may have a tendency to run late. There's a story to be told. There's a story to hear. We like to have lots of things. If you're gonna have a party, do you make sure that you have one of those? That's our imaging. We love those people because they bring life to everything that's going on. Now, for those of you who are maybe introvert and go with the flow kind of people, can you raise your hand? Okay, that's about 35% of the population. These people are so happy when they make others happy. There are peacemakers. Any of you middle children? Middle children. Okay. And we love you because without you, we would be a mess. You're going around making everybody happy, making sure that things are done well. And let me ask you, do people ever let you know how much you're appreciated? Like, it's never enough because you do so much. And there's one word that's very difficult for your mouth to say, so I want you to all practice with me and say this word together. It's spelled N-O. So all together, and we say no. Those are our Shireens. They want to help people, they want to make things right, and they just can't say no. And so you want to, you don't want to ask them too many things because they will always say yes, and when they say yes, then they get overbooked. We love the Shireens. Now there may be many of you who haven't raised your hand because you're not quite sure. You don't know exactly. You could be extroverted, you could be introverted. There are times when you're one way or the other, and for goodness sake, it's so hard to make a decision. We don't have enough information. I really need to know more about it. Am I getting anybody? I'd like you to raise your hand now if you are introverted and detail-oriented. Yeah. These are our Charles. These, we love them and we have to have them because these are the ones that are crossing our T's, dotting our I's, making sure things are just right. Without them, when they build a bridge, it wouldn't meet in the middle. We need to have those people in our lives. They represent about 25% of the population. Now, I've just blown the minds of all those people in that group because the numbers I've given do not add up to 100, and I know they've been adding them in your head, right? Yeah. So those are averages. So what do you do with this information? What kind of things can you do with them? Well, we found that being able to communicate with these people can make a difference. It can make a difference with your peers, with your supervisors, with your employees, your clients, and even in your home life. Let me give you an example. There was a Shireen, we'll say, you give her that name, who is a car salesperson. Now, Shireen had gone through training and knew all the different personalities, could recognize them in people. She had done the personalities of the people that she works with. She'd also gotten to the point where she could tell if somebody walked in the room, she kind of had an idea of what kind of personality they would have. More importantly, she'd gone out into the community and found out about her competitors and knew what kind of personality they had. So when the person walked into the room, she could tell that it was a Charles personality. She knew that this person was going to want details, was going to be take their time to make a decision, and wasn't going to be pushed into anything. So she waited until she found out what kind of, didn't approach them, waited until they found the kind of car, the model that they want, grabbed up every brochure she could find, took it over and said, I see that you're interested in this car, would you like more information? That's a key thing for a Charles personality. Handed out all the brochures, all the information, and left them alone. After a while, she came back to the Charles buyer and said, I can see you're interested in this model and that you probably want to do some more research, because that's what they want to do, right? Am I talking to that population? You want to do more research? So in wanting to do more research, I'd advise you go to that dealership across town, and I want you to ask for my friend. Now, who did she send them to? Somebody who had a personality that would be very pushy on this Charles population. And that Charles would come running back to Shireen to get to sell. Smart? This is powerful information, I'm telling you. Let me tell you another example where it didn't work out so well. I've had many careers in my life. In one career, I had a direct supervisor who was an imaging personality. Oh my gosh, did we have fun. I mean, there was always a party, there was always something going on, there was always excitement. Now, Imogene supervisor was a David personality. I want the bottom line, I want to know what's going on, give me the details, and let's get this going. I could tell what was going to happen when Imogene would go into David's office. I would prepare reports. I mean, lots of reports and lots of summaries, because that was going to be important to David, that you would have the summary information that they can digest the reports and go forward. Imogene would say, oh, that's interesting, but I don't really need it. We have got so many successful stories to talk about. That's not what David wanted to hear. So Imogene would go up into David's office, And I'm sorry to tell you that that relationship did not go well. Can you see the power of having this information and how it goes through? And then knowing that not only your own preferred personality, but understanding the personality of others. So before I close, I'd like to ask, do you have any questions?
Personality are you, Katie?
Oh, what personality is me? Okay, so I'll ask you, what personality do you think I have?
Well, I think you're outgoing,
Outgoing?
but, okay, so you mean outgoing and detailed at the same time?
Oh yes, outgoing and detailed, yes. That would be a D, David personality. That's a natural born leader. Now what's interesting is that I have gone deeply into this, and deeply into this, my internal personality is a Shreen. I'm a people pleaser. However, in my growing up years, I've had to be a leader. And in having to be a leader, I moved into a D. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, that you can be one kind of personality at one place and a different personality someplace else. There's a story about a babysitter who was an I personality. Perfect babysitter, right? We had fun, there were lots of things to do, they were going off on things, and yet the children weren't paying attention. And so she told her dad, I had to pull up the David personality in me to be able to get those kids to go to bed. So you can pull up these different personalities at different times. And of course, it's a great idea to have these personalities and to understand what words, triggers, and actions help build that relationship so that you can have a very comfortable relationship with others. So thanks for asking, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes?
This talk you give, is this, your business is to go into groups and coaching, or you work one-on-one?
So the question is this my business or do you one-on-one? And the answer is yes. I do training, anywhere from 4-hour to 2-day training in this, where we actually do surveys, extensive surveys, and get a clear indication. Because each of us have a little bit of each one of these personalities in us, but identifying what our primary one is and how we can accept the information, that's what makes a difference. And then I also do one-on-one. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm an extrovert and I go with the flow, but then I'm also like down the business and like I have a lot of things done and what I want done, so.
So she said she was an extrovert and a go with the flow, but she's also like to get down to business. So that's true. When I do the presentation and you see that there's 4 sections of a circle, that's D-I-S-C. So what you described is your I in imaging primarily, but you'd like to go into a D and get things done. And when we do the training, I have people actually physically move into the 4 corners of the room and then point to the one that you feel you're the closest. And most people will point to a right or a left. Seldom do they point to the opposite. So what you're saying is you are right next to each other, and that's what we have. We have a primary, and then we have a little bit, and we can do each of them at different times. Yeah. Thank you for telling us that. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
So I'm just curious if it's more important like from a managerial side versus an employee side, because you have to know how to deal with your manager, because you need to know their personality and how you approach them. But should managers be knowing how to deal with their employees' personalities, or is that more difficult because you're managing? I certainly know how to deal with my husband, who I also work with. But so I know how to approach him to get more things done, but from that standpoint. So I'm just kind of curious if you kind of teach both, an employee versus a manager.
So the question is it more important for a manager to know this or an employee to know this? And the answer is yes. Can you tell my answers?
Yes.
A manager, it's important for a manager to know this because if you're going to be communicating to your staff and understanding that this one likes to tell stories, so you're going to give them time to tell stories, and this one has to have the detail. So as you're giving a presentation, you may have noticed in my presentation that I may have covered all 4 aspects and gotten the interest of everybody in the room by giving a little bit of direct, a little bit of a story, a little bit of soothing, and a little bit of detail. And so for a manager to know that and to give the presentation so that you are getting the attention of everybody in the room, and an employee needs to understand that, especially an employee that works with clients. Because if you have a client coming in and you can tell that they may be more introvert, you will slow down your speech because introverts like to take their time. And if you can tell somebody's walking briskly into the room, we're gonna get right down to the bottom line and we're gonna tell some stories. So it's an important skill regardless if you're a manager or an employee. Yeah. Other questions? Well, I wanna thank you for your time, and I wanna tell you that take some time to dig a little deeper into this. Once now you know a little bit about yourself, identify your family, your work, and your clients so that you can increase your communication to increase productivity, employee engagement, retention, and trust.
Thank you very much, Dr. Katie. We appreciate you.